Toaplan is a shooting arcade legend, and Twin Cobra was one of the most influential and best-selling games they've ever released. M2 has finally made good on their promise to start releasing Toaplan's arcade classics as part of their Shot Trigger series, and they couldn't have chosen a more important game to start with. Popular shooters like Raiden wouldn't have existed without Twin Cobra, and while Toaplan went on to make more amazing games like Truxton, Fire Shark, and Batsugun, the Ultimate Tiger series remains one of their most well-known to date. This Retrobit Toaplan collection released last year has 4 of their most popular games on it, but Twin Cobra, not one of them. But that's alright, because M2 is doing one better and releasing the entire series, every game, every port, every version, as part of a single collection. A total of 8 different variants, with both the Japanese original Kyukyoku Tiger and the Western Twin Cobra. Then add the PC Engine and Mega Drive ports, and finally both the Famicom and NES ports. And yes, they all have differences, some significant, which I'll show you in this video. But we're not done, as the collection also includes the original game in the series, Tiger-Heli, the arcade version, and the Famicom and NES ports. Keep in mind, this is M2 shot triggers, not just an emulation of the arcade. I have confirmation they went back to the original, difficult to work on Toaplan PCBs and recoded the arcade games to provide an identical experience on modern consoles. It was a long, painstaking process, and the result is the first game of their Toaplan collections. And it's coming really soon in October of 2021. So just like I did with my previous video on the Cotton collection, I want to give you an overview of the entire series, everything that's going to be on this collection, and help you decide if it's a game that you want to pre-order. And with the extra features that they're adding, like the Arcade Challenge and the Super Easy mode, even Timmy will be able to finish it. Hey, I resent that. Don't you remember? Just a couple episodes ago, I finished Trevor McFur. How could I forget? We just finished fixing the damn hole in the floor. Yeah, spending your life reviewing shitty games is hard work. But Twin Cobra is no Trevor McFur, and if you can finish it, I'll eat my copy of Deep Blue. Ha! If I can't finish it, let the heavens strike me down where I sit. Hey, don't say that in here. I've got a lot of games on the shelves. Please, like anyone's actually up there lit. Hey, what's that sound? Damn it, Timmy! Before there was a game called Tiger-Heli, there was Gyrodyne, another vertical shooting game featuring a chopper, developed by a different company called Crux. During my research, I was surprised to learn that it was created by a number of staff that would move on to join Toaplan, though it wasn't directly developed by the same programmers like Tatsuya Uemura. The concept did have an influence on them, and they took the aspects that worked to design Tiger-Heli. The original Tiger-Heli may seem dated by today's standards. It did release way back in 1985 after all, but it also introduced some of the very first STG concepts that are now considered a staple, like limited bombs. That's right, Tiger-Heli was the first to introduce large, badass, screen-clearing limited bombs. But not for the reason you might think. Bombs are commonly used as a way to save yourself for those oh shit moments, and for experienced players, something they avoid using entirely, turning it into a no-bomb achievement. Neither was the reason Toaplan originally intended. The real reason? To blow shit up. According to an interview with Uemura-san, the original intent was to use them aggressively for attack, Because it was cool. It was the players that started using the bombs in a way that they never expected. That's it, to blow shit up. I knew there was a reason I liked these guys. While Tiger-Heli was a solid early effort, it was also a learning experience with a lot of features that were improved in the sequel. Those bombs that originally were just meant for destruction became longer in duration and had increased invulnerability time in the sequel. In the original, you can see your bombs carried on the wings, and if they get hit with a shot, they explode on their own. Kind of a cool idea, but not all that practical. Your main shot in Heli was also hopelessly weak and basic, not even reaching the length of the screen, and the only other power-ups were the small chopper satellites that you picked up. The game was short at 4 stages long before it looped, and to absolutely nobody's surprise, Toaplan made it so you can blow up the houses in the game. For points. Nope, no surprise at all. But the base gameplay that would eventually become one of their biggest games was there. The slow-paced chopper coupled with the fast-paced, AI-driven bullets that seem to know where you're going next, and the strategic gameplay that forced you to route the levels, typical of Uemura-san's designs. So it's great to see it included in this collection, both for nostalgia of those who played it long ago, but also historically. Not nearly as historic is the NES game by Micronix, known for its somewhat lazy port, but despite that, I think it gets a bad rap, as it's not all that bad. The chiptune is well done, and the gameplay's decent enough for an early port. I love and grew up with the NES, and Tiger-Heli was certainly more playable than some of the other dreck on the system, despite being pretty sparse. Plus, look at that cover art. One of the few times the US art was better than Japan. America! Fuck yeah! But let's be real here. Tiger-Heli isn't the reason we want this collection. It's the sequel, Kyukyoku Tiger, aka Twin Cobra. That's the main event, based on the widely used twin-engine Bell AH-1 Super Cobra that rained death and destruction for the US Marine Corps. Twin Cobra is one of Toaplan's first true top-tier games. Yes, the graphics are still on the simple side. It's an older game, but it's got it where it counts. Brutal gameplay accompanied by some great music and thumping effects. And whether you played it in the arcade or at home on the Mega Drive, PC Engine, or NES, you got a solid port of a classic. The biggest upgrade is in the weapon system, which is actually the very first shoot 'em up to ever feature cycling variable floating pickups that we now take for granted. Red for the all-around forward shot, green for the powerful but thin laser, and blue for the spread shot. There's also a yellow 4-way weapon, but it's so underpowered compared to the others that players actually accuse Toaplan of it being made as a penalty for grabbing it by mistake. To add insult to injury, the strange path that these power-ups take around the screen often makes it seem like they're running away from you when you need them most. Right into the path of an oncoming bullet or kamikaze enemy, slowly calling to you like a siren song, only to pull away at the worst moment, then BAM! And the story goes, according to Yuge-san, this entire pattern was modeled after his lunch one day. He was taking a lunch break and became entranced by a zigzag pattern in his donburi ramen, then hurried back to work before he forgot and coded that pattern into the game. It wasn't Toaplan's purposeful evil design. It was the ramen. Blame the ramen. Damn it, ramen. The bombs are also bigger and badder and last longer, starting a trend of killer bombs that Toaplan would become known for. But with all this extra firepower, something's gotta tip the balance back in the enemy's favor. And this is where the evil does begin. The enemy AI. If you like your shmups hard without any lube, this Tiger's for you. These bullets aren't just fast, they're aimed to please. They know exactly where you're going and will be there to meet you when you arrive. The moment your movements become predictable, it will predict you. You'll learn to fear every enemy in the game, from the biggest boss to the lowly tanks. They'll snipe you from every angle, from the sides and from the rear. I talked about this type of enemy AI in my Raiden segment when I did the top 5 hardest shmups on the PS1.
Goes the weasel.
And Raiden cribbed it from Twin Cobra. Thankfully, Toaplan was kind enough to program a feature where the enemies will not fire if you're very close to them, ensuring they wouldn't be able to point blank you too unfairly. Twin Cobra is brutal, but not too often unfair. In fact, much like all of Umura-san's games, once you learn the strategy and route for each segment like a puzzle, the game becomes much more manageable, and it's all by design. Part of that strategy is learning recovery, which is also thought through like a puzzle, meaning when you die and go back to a checkpoint, if you're playing a version with checkpoints, there is a way to route through the sections until you can power up. It's harder, of course, but possible. Again, by design. Twin Cobra is a well-designed, long game. 10 stages long to be exact. So have your butt paste handy if you're learning to 1cc this one. Now, I call it Twin Cobra because it's easier to say, but Kyukyoku Tiger is the brutal Japan original with all the trimmings. There's a 2-player version included in the collection as well, but it's not the same as the Western Twin Cobra. When bringing it overseas, a number of changes were made to make it a bit easier, but also more of a quarter muncher. First, the checkpoints were removed and replaced with respawns. 2-player is standard. Your chopper is also a bit faster, red instead of gray, but you only get 3 active shots per screen versus 4 to balance it out. And while it does lose something in the transition in terms of checkpoint strategy, many may find the faster chopper more fun, and respawns likely made the arcade operators more money from people credit feeding through it. It's also more generous with its extends at every 50 than 150,000 points, while the original is 70 and every 200,000. Either way, all 3 versions are on this collection. So pick your poison. Pun intended. Get it? Cobra? Poison? But fear not, as remember, this is M2 shot triggers, baby. That means not only awesome gadgets around the screen that you can customize, but also the features you've come to expect, like stage practice, save states, rewind and replays. So you can see how those bastards nailed you in slow motion. And if you grew up playing the console ports and that's where your nostalgia lies, it's got you covered there too. There's the excellent PC Engine port, which is a great all-around release for most players. It's more reasonable in difficulty at the start of the game, before getting serious after the first few stages. And it also happens to have no slowdown unless intended, and has the better graphics of the included home ports. Add on some great renditions of all the music, and it's a sought-after, well-regarded port. It does suffer from some unfortunate, very difficult and poorly placed checkpoints later in the game, but overall, it's considered a classic on the system. Then we have the Mega Drive Genesis port, which is some sort of unholy punishment from the angry gods, in the rare case of the Sega port being harder than the PC Engine. Twin Cobra on the Mega Drive takes the already brutal enemy AI of the arcade and turns it into a supercomputer that'd give Garry Kasparov a run for his money. In other words, the aimed bullets take on a new level of prediction and seem to have your number far too often. It makes this port one of the absolute hardest games on the Genesis, and having a jar of butt paste on standby is a necessity. The port itself is strangely bare in terms of graphics, giving up that category to the PC Engine, though the music is really well done given the similar Yamaha FM chip, and copies the arcade pretty well. The sound effects are great too, with some nice bassy thumps when taking out enemies. But between the shorter 4x3 aspect screen and the evil bullets, it's a port built for pain. Classic Toaplan. And if that's the version you grew up playing and love, feel free to have it wreck you all over again. Or use M2's convenience features to finally learn and get through it, as it's still one heck of a well-built game. It's just really damn hard. Finally, you have the Famicom NES port, which is surprisingly well done, given its limitations. Ported again by the infamous Micronics. Dare I say it's one of the better ports they've ever done, from the music and gameplay to the more basic but solid graphics. It's as fun to play as anyone could ask for in a game ported down to the 8-bit console. And if it's what you grew up playing first, it's the nostalgia that makes it worth the ride. And it's wonderful that M2 included all these various ports on the collection. I do want to mention a couple of the ports that didn't make the cut here, and those would be the computer-oriented ports on the FM Towns Marty and the Sharp 68000, which would have been cool as well, as not only do they mimic the arcade the most closely, being more powerful machines, but both ports have their own cool remixed soundtracks and exclusive to those systems. Check it out. There was also a PlayStation port with an FMV intro, but given it's mostly arcade accurate, I can see it not being needed here since you already have completely recoded arcade original ports. To top it all off, they also added a cool extra, an early rare Toaplan beat-em-up called Guardian, or Get Star in Japan, with the majority of the music composed by Masahiro Yuge, and art designed by Koetsu Iwabuchi, who later went on to work on Twin Cobra and Hellfire. That's a total of 13 games and variants in the collection. So have I already pre-ordered the Tiger collection coming from M2? Damn right I have. There isn't an M2 Shot Triggers release that I won't buy, because every one so far has been gold. They're the most important and prominent developer that we have making games for our community, and they own my business at this point, so they can continue making games as long as they're able. I'm not only excited that they're finally releasing their Toaplan series, but positively giddy that up next, we'll likely have a Truxton and Outzone collection coming too. And I'm gonna do my damnedest to make sure this first release does well for them, so they're motivated to do the next sooner rather than later. And if you feel the same way, you've likely already pre-ordered this too. But for everyone else who was on the fence, or wasn't sure what this collection contained, does it look like a release that you're interested in? Did this preview at least help you decide if this collection is right for you? Let me know in the comments. The game will be available both in physical and digital form, as well as cheaper versions with optional DLC that let you purchase the arcade ports only, with the added console ports and extras as optional. If you are looking to order a physical copy, I've included a link in my description, and it's part of a new initiative that I'm excited to finally start working on, where anything my channel makes, whether through affiliate links or some upcoming merchandise that I've been working on, will go into an indie shmup fund. I plan to use that to help fund our community, provide marketing funds for indie shmups and developers, and also to help content creators that are focused on STGs. So as of this month, anything that my channel makes through various links or upcoming merchandise, I'll be setting aside half of everything that it makes to go back into the community and provide a public list on my website of how much and where it's all going. Now, I don't know how well it'll do or how much we can possibly make, but I'm sure as hell gonna try. And speaking of supporting the community, Mark MSX from the Electric Underground is hosting the 4th Shmup Slam event right now. This weekend, 2 full days of shmup streaming with guest commentary and live chat on his channel, including a number of players from my Discord, playing games like Truxton 2, Zero Ranger, Castle Shikigami, Armed Police Batrider, Transcend Pain, and more. So check it out, as we're lucky to have that kind of regular shmup community event today. And when you're done, check out some of my other preview videos if you haven't seen them, like Darius Revelations and the Cotton Collection. And speaking of Cotton, coming up soon will be another preview from me on the soon-to-be-released Sega Saturn Cotton 2 collection, with both Cotton 2 and Boomerang, as well as Guardian Force, a fantastic game that you'll really want to check out if you've never heard of it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see some of you over on the Shmup Slam chat later on today. That is, after I finish fixing the damn hole in my floor again.